letter Kuf, the 19th letter, the English letter Q. What might we see in the letter Kuf? There's a lot of anonymous talking about the letter Q these days, for those who are looking at those things. What's up with the letter Q? What's up with the letter Kuf? It means the back of the head. The top of the letter Kuf is round, like a bowler hat. The two aspects of the letter Kuf, I should draw a picture of this, if it'll show up. Letter Kuf has two elements. There's the round element, that's the back of the head, and then there's this vertical, that would be the neck. That's the letter Kuf. It became, in written form, the letter Q, or Q in English. So if you were to draw a nose and mouth, there's the front of the head, an eyeball. Kuf is the back of the head. If you write the word Jacob, Yod, Ayin, Kuf, Bet in Paleo, that's the word Jacob, which is actually a Y, that would be the English letter O, pronounced as an A, Q, B, Jacob. And this word here, Ayin, Kuf, Bet, means a heel. It's actually a footstep. A footstep, if you're walking down a path, what's left behind is the footsteps. So the footsteps are what follow you. The wake of a ship follows the ship. If you work for a week and expect a payday, or you do something, you expect a reward, or you do something wrong and you expect to get in trouble, all that's Ayin, Kuf, Bet. It's all Kuf, it's the back of the head. But we're told that Jacob means supplanter and overreach. When Jacob and Esau, his twin brother, were in the womb of their mother Rebekah, Esau's foot was kicking at Jacob's head. Jacob reached up and was either grabbing his foot, or was he stopping his foot from hitting him in the head? And when they came out, Yaakov's hand was on Esau's foot. And so there's this story that Jacob reaches to take what belongs to Esau. Esau was born first, by a matter of seconds maybe. The point is, this all has to do with Kuf stuff. So as the study of the Hebrew goes, what's all this with being in the attic? There's a certain word that's spelled Ayin, Tav, Yod, Kuf, and it would be pronounced Atik. Ayin, Tav, Kuf would be the basic word, three-letter root. I don't have the page queued up. Here it is, page 490 in the red dictionary. This one doesn't have the cover on it. That cover disappears pretty easily. It means to move, proceed, advance, remove, displaced, translated, copied, transferred, transliterated, translated, to be strong, to be proud, to be excellent, copy of a book, shunter, switchman, like with a railroad, changing tracks, haughtiness, pride, arrogance, like somebody wearing a big fancy jacket, leader of a three-ring circus. So the idea is you take the best of the past that you don't find any present use for, and you put it in the attic. We mentioned on another video about this concept, Toys in the Attic, a song that Aerosmith made. But that idea of this airplane, somebody had a lot of fun with that at one time. toy, mailbox, old airplane, trains. This was a picture from a little girl's dollhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Her mom made that. That's an old picture. Some ancestors, an old lamp. Yeah, that's really getting old. An ox yoke. The word aleph means to be teamed up together like oxen, yoked. It also means ox, but it also means to be taught, trained, and domesticated, or like a tribe of a whole group of people who have the same heart. Yechad would be the word, Yod Het Dalet, like Aleph Het Dalet means one or united. Yod Het Dalet means like this team, football team, rugby team. Somebody who's got the same intent and everybody's got their place, but they're working towards the goal, like a team of oxen. So the attic is a place where you put things that hopefully somebody in another generation will use. Well, that's exactly what this Paleo-Hebrew is. Paleo-Hebrew is the best of the ancient. And it was stored away, hidden from use for centuries, at least since 500 BC. 2,500 years. The suggestion is that Daniel, in Daniel 12:4, was commissioned and empowered by the Archangel Gabriel to hide these words and seal this book, which I propose is that Daniel changed the Paleo-Hebrew script into what's known as the modern Chaldean flame letters. So what about this letter Kuf? What about this concept of the attic? It's that something is sustained out of use, like in a tomb, in some sort of crypt or encrypted language, for quite a length of time until it's been determined and planned, established, ordained on high that the things of use could be brought back out and put to great use, that the interim generations didn't appreciate, didn't get it, had no access. Some things are locked away in a vault. People lose the key, lose memory that it's even there. But so the idea that the alphabet letters tell a story. They're not only pictures. They'll tell you that the Kuf is the back of the head, like the picture that I drew. And it means that which follows, or later. In fact, there's one of the constellations, I believe it's Cygnus the Swan, as it's called. But it's not just a picture of a swan, but the swan has this route that it flies off into the distance to the far side of the universe, but it's expected to come back around. So there's this circuit, there's this concept of a full circuit. When you say you're looking at the face of a clock, when you're starting at high noon, 12 o'clock, the arms take off on running a route. The word Resh Zadi, as in Eretz, as in earth, Aleph Resh Zadi, means I'm going to run this course. And so the hands of the clock run the route, the circuit all the way around, coming back up to, well, the minute hand has to go around a dozen times before the little hand. 360 times, actually. Dozen times per letter. What I'm saying is that it's a picture of a wheel within a wheel. It's a clock. And there's something about this letter Kuf, which is more than just the back of the head. It's the picture of a circuit. It's a picture of something coming all the way back around. That which you thought was lost or not going to happen actually is going to happen. And it's orchestrated. So the question is, orchestrated according to what? Well, see, the other premise, we talked about this on a couple of videos ago, where the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet actually indicate that Yeshua is the Messiah. And that if you read through the letters, you can see the staging of the gospel narrative story, which I believe is validation, is proof, is Asher, Aleph Shin Resh, authenticate, confirm, validate, make straight, and Ayin Resh Kaf. Look at something or put something in such an order, arrange things in such a way that you can appreciate them. If you just have a jumble of stuff, like in most attics and basements and barns, that you can't make any use of, it just sits there until it's time for somebody who has the time to, hey, what is this stuff? Maybe we should put that on the dining room table. Maybe this would look good on a bookcase. Hey, maybe we could sell that. Why don't we just give this one away? The point is, you have to go through and assess what things are, and put them in their proper placement, and then you can see what's really going on. You can see what you really have. That's exactly what the word ayin resh kaf means. Eric, as in Erictology. That's the same as the word shemen, shin mem nun, as in the word oil. And 5 of the bridesmaids at the story in the Bible, the parable that Yeshua talked about, 5 had oil and 5 didn't. And so we talked a few years ago on this concept of what is oil? Is it shin mem nun? The shin mem is name, fame, noun, reputation. It's like, what is this? Tell a story about it. That's its shem. Not only what's it a model of, but who played with that? What they do? Where did they live? Why are their wings torn up? There's a story there. Part of that story is the shem. And the mem nun means from where? What's this? It's where we get the word manna, and it means to noon out of a mem, to be birthed out of a hidden place. So the same way that Israel was sent into dispersion, captivity, the diaspora, as it's called. All 12 tribes, 2 different terms of exile. The northern kingdom, 10 tribes. The southern kingdom, 2. The southern kingdom came back, according to Jeremiah 3 and 4. The northern kingdom was divorced, shalach, sent out, banished. That word divorced, but not the southern kingdom. So the southern kingdom, known as Yehuda or Judah, composing of Judah and Benjamin, were different terms of punishment. Completely different terms in terms of length. That northern kingdom, if you look in Ezekiel 4, Ezekiel was told to tell the northern kingdom that 390 days, a day for a year, so 390 years was the term of the curse. Leviticus 23, the curse would be multiplied by 7 if we didn't return. Maybe we should put that on the other side of the room. Sorry about that. Phones, gosh. Anyway, the idea that 7 times 390 is 2,730, so that sometime around 2010, being that the term of exile started in 721 BC, we've talked about this before, I'm going kind of fast here. But the idea was that after 2010, the northern kingdom was allowed to return. The prison sentence was over. Awake from the coma, Kuf Zadi. Then, where's this Kuf come into play? Well, if you look at the meaning of the Hebrew letters, Zion is a weapon, the 7th letter. Het is a fence. Zion being a weapon means to cut off, like the Sabbath day cuts off, and you've got now the 7-day package of the week, and then you start something else. The letter Het is actually drawn like a figure 8, the eternity symbol. So Het speaks of this whole new beginning, like unto eternity, or a whole different world. And you could read the alphabet as it's talking about 7,000 years of life on earth, and then eternity, a whole new dimension, a whole new reality possibly. Or we could look at it as another model where Israel getting put to the weapon under the exile, the curse, is the Zion, and then Israel being taken into captivity. Now the Het, instead of being this pasture of protection, is actually a jail sentence, a time of being under somebody else's guard and under somebody else's domain. So for how long? Well, Het is this fence. But that's like Yeshua being crucified at the Zion, thrown into the tomb, Het, the round rock rolled in front of the door, Tet, and then Zadi resurrecting. Pei Zadi is the word pizza that means open mouth, explode, detonate, scatter. So if it means open mouth, then I've likened this to when Yeshua went to the place where he gave the Sermon on the Mount, top of the hill, and he sat down, opened his mouth, and he taught them, saying, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. The poor in spirit, the haughty, the arrogant, have no access. There's each one of those Beatitudes was a qualifier. If you're like this, then you can have that. If you're like this, then you can have that. So every letter represents actually a qualifying filter of who has something, who gets access, and who doesn't. But if you can read the alphabet letters that Yeshua sparked back to life at the Zadi, Kuf follows Zadi. What does that mean? Well, look at the narrative of the story of the gospel. After he rose from the dead, which would be Kuf, the grave opened its mouth, there's Pezadi. Then what did he do? Well, he appeared on the earth, walking around. Did he travel to the New World? He could walk through walls. Was he stuck to just walking around Jerusalem or the land of Israel, or did he go everywhere? Who knows? There's talk about somebody showing up way back when and visiting other continents, so it's his earth. He could if he wanted to. The point is, we don't know what he did, but we know that he hung around, walking around, doing stuff in an exalted state, a status of high regard and honor, untouchable. Well, they could touch him after that's a model of actually the what's called the waving of the first fruits. Right after the Passover, when he was killed, slain, put to the cross, put to the weapons iron, then he was interred for 3 days and 3 nights, at which point he resurrected, and then Sunday, first day of the week, morning, as the account goes, the woman who was going to reach out, she said, "Don't touch me, I haven't ascended to my Father." Well, right at that time, that would have been the first day of the 50 days of counting Pentecost, in which case he would have risen up into heaven and shown himself to his Father. That's the model. After that, he came down and had Thomas put his finger in his hand, so he couldn't be touched until he presented himself to his Father. That was on what's called Sunday morning, or first day of the week, what people have called Easter. Easter is actually named after Ishtar, which is the Canaanite goddess of fertility, which is why that name isn't worth mentioning, but Resurrection Day. The point is, trying to just give you a reckoning of where everything fits. If he came back and then was touchable, but nobody could grab a hold of him and do anything to him again, but he did sit there and was shown making fish to eat. So what did he do? He hung around for 40 days. 40 days, 40 nights. Why that number? There's something there. Noon is the number 40. No, Mem is 40, excuse me. Noon is 50. Mem is 40. Mem is also the number for related to being in a womb, gestating, incubating, being in a laboratory. And I say laboratory because laver lines up with the Mishkan pattern of Mem and Noon, the bronze laver, the mirror made out of the mirrors of the women. But if he came up and he walked around for 40 days, he then, as the story tells us, was talking to his Talmudim, his disciples, his disciplined followers, and he was taken up into the clouds. Well, the letter Kuf is that picture. It's got this vertical and the round, like the bowler's hat. There's this vertical aspect and this round aspect. That's it, like a picture of Yeshua rising up into the clouds, or like leaving the terrestrial earth down here and descending into the Shemayim, the heavenlies.
Put it in front of them.
But also, the angel that met with the disciples talked to him there, said, he's coming back the same way. So from the clouds of the heavenlies, with his hosts in the future, he's going to come and descend and land right back on the Mount of Olives. Just like he left, he's going to come back. So this picture, Kuf, is 2 events. It's the beginning event and the later event, like counting to 50, Mem Noon for Shavuot. There's a first day, count 50, and then there's what's known as Bikurim, or Pentecost. Penta means 50, and cost is count. So count 50. So Pentecost, literally, they say it's the birthday of the church, but the reason why those people that people say became the church, the reason why they met in that upper room on that particular day is because that was the 50th day of counting from the first day after the Sabbath of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Gets complicated if you don't know anything about the subject. I'm putting these words out so that you will have these words in your ear to at least have heard them. Whether or not you can make sense out of them, whether or not you do anything with them, is completely up to you. But I had never heard these things until just 2002, 2003 is when I heard them. Anyway, not correlated to the letters of the alphabet though. So this picture of going up into the heavens doing something. Now, Yeshua said, similar to the traditional Jewish wedding ceremony, he was going to go prepare a place for us, come back and receive us, and then take his followers, take them back up to where he is. Now, is that up in the heavenlies, or is he coming back to the earth? Again, more disagreement. You read the scriptures, and it says, he's made the earth to be inhabited forever. Well, then where's the heaven? Well, there's a new heaven and new earth. Book of Revelation talks about that. Yeah, but do we go to heaven? Or are we coming back to the earth? You can read both stories in the scripture. Which is it? We don't know. The point is, he went up doing something to prepare something and then coming back. That's the letter Kuf. And he hung around for 40 days, which means that after he resurrected Zadi, there's a length of time of living in some exalted status. Well, what exalted status? After the letter Kuf is the letter Resh. The letter Resh means exalted man. It's the front of the face. This letter here, actually the inverse of the letter Kuf, is the letter Resh. Resh, an honored man, exalted man, one who's lifted up. So I can read the alphabet, the Hebrew alphabet, the 22 letters. If I look at the 19th letter Kuf, and then look at the 20th letter Resh, the 21st letter is Shin, which is teeth, or fire, or that which consumes. And Yeshua said when he's coming back after Kuf, then he's going to provide, which is one meaning of El Shaddai, the great provider of all benefits. He's going to provide everything that he promised to his followers, his taught ones, his adherents, those who know his name. Another qualification elsewhere, those who have faith and trust and confidence in him. What if they haven't heard the gospel story? Well, that's a debatable matter. That's another matter. But the point is, he's going to come back and give baruchah, blessings, good things, as he promised to those who regard him, and his enemies he's going to destroy, consume with fire, Shin, teeth and fire. El Shaddai, the Almighty. And there's numerous Bible verses that talk about that. Written scripture. Some people don't like the word Bible. The English is full of words which there's trouble with. I use the English words so that people can understand what I'm saying. I try to be careful. Just so you know, it's difficult to try to speak exactly. I use as many Hebrew words as possible because those are clean. But if you don't understand what they are, then you don't understand what they are. The point about this is that if I read the Kuf as he's going to ascend after he resurrects, hang around for a while, then disappear, and then come back, and that's Resh, that's one way to read it. The other thing I could say is that once Israel comes back out of the captivity, out of the dispersion, out of being kicked out of the land, scattered across the face of the earth, then Yahuwah said he's going to gather his people back and give them, bring them, what's called the Greater Exodus, bring them back to the land that he swore to our forefathers. And we can look at that and say, what is there over there that we would want to go to? You could even look today and it's like, it's a desert. If you like desert, maybe, but there's a lot of trouble over there. A lot of people throwing stuff at each other. But it's not going to be like that. He said numerous Bible verses. It would take a lot of time, but we could make a whole list of them. He made many statements that the land would resprout, that there would be no fear, there would be no enemies, there would be no trouble, and that all the other nations of the earth would be in high regard of the people that Yahuwah bring back, because it will be to his kavod, his glory, his honor, that he will be the diadem, the headdress of his people Israel. And that the things he's going to do for his people are spectacular, and everybody in the world will go, wow, who is this people, and who is this Elohim that he should have such a regard of these people? That hasn't happened yet. And to think that it has to happen only when Jesus comes back, or only after the millennial reign, or only after the tribulation, or only after, it's like, that's all speculation. If you simply look at the progression of the Hebrew letters, if the Zodi is a resurrection, is Israel coming back to Yahweh's words, to the covenant that they were banished from, then Kuf means to rise up or to elevate. The word kum, kumi, Isaiah 60 says, Kumi Ori. It's translated, arise and shine, for your light has come. The kavod of Elohim is risen upon you, brilliantly shining. What does that mean? Is that talking about Yeshua resurrecting? Possibly, but why does it say, arise and shine, your light has come? The kavod, the glory of Elohim, has risen upon you. And then it goes on to say, in Isaiah 60, about how he's going to take Israel back to the land and give them great benefits, and that everything will be wonderful. Doesn't sound like it's the end of the world. Doesn't sound like Jesus is coming back, it's millennial kingdom, or space aliens come down here and take over. Doesn't sound like the beast, the Antichrist, the man of sin, the devil incarnate, Lucifer in the flesh. It doesn't sound like that if you read Isaiah 60, and Isaiah 60 has not happened yet. So I maintain one position that I speak of in making these videos is trying to read the chronological narrative of the alphabet letters as if they were a prophecy of the family history of the people of Israel, modeled after the life of Yeshua being Mashiach, which means the tangible conversation. What conversation? The 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. That communication is a sheikh. The mem, shin yod het, means to put it into a noun form. So him being the word made flesh is these 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet in actuality, walking around as a human, and therefore his life story correlates to the meaning of the 22 letters. So if he came back, Zadi, risen from the dead, like Israel resurrecting from the diaspora, and hanging around for 40 days, untouchable, of high regard, floating around, then there's this verse that says, who are these that fly like a cloud, like a dove, like doves to their coat windows? I just spent quite some time working on translating that verse. It's another story, another video. It reads differently than we see it in English. The English works, as we've said before, as kind of a placeholder. You put an object there that says, oh yeah, I know what that's talking about, I know who it's for, it's written in English, I can understand it, but you really don't know what it says unless you go back and you look at the Hebrew words and the Hebrew letters, word for word, letter by letter, and then you have to see what else is going on with those words, because there's a way to translate where it's just at face value, the simple translation, but how do you find the treasure that's been hidden in the antiques in the attic? Where's the treasure really in these words? It's not just in the translation. There's other ways to read what these words mean. And I've spent 15 years, 16 years now, trying to figure out how to do that and making my findings available to people on the website. I've got thousands of pages that nobody has ever seen of translations, of trying to figure out what these words mean. But I'm making these videos to kind of give you, just in a nutshell, some of the great nuggets of what I believe is truth. And the truth is, after the resurrection, he hung around doing something for 40 days. And it still wasn't the end. 10 days after that, the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, was poured out on the people meeting at the room. And it's been 2,000 years since then. What's the picture we're looking at? If I were to think that this is the imminent end of the world, my hopes are up, I'm expecting some cataclysmic event, okay. But if I can read in the narrative where this isn't the end of the world, as a matter of fact, we're right at the time when the people come back out of the dispersion that everybody forgot was going to happen. And then Yahweh says, hey, I'm going to bring you back to the land and give you an exalted position for generations, for quite some time. Well, that's not the end of the world at all, which means we have a great hope in front of us. The letter Kuf with the single letter suffix Vav means hope, expectation, like a string under tension, anxiously waiting. I've heard it said that the Jews tell their people that their job as a believer is to have an actively engaged hope under tension. In fact, the word Tikva means to have hope, and the word Ha-Tikva, the hope, is the name of the Israeli national anthem. Now, if you listen to the words, their hope was to get the land back and go back there And certainly that was actualized in 1948, then again something in 1967, then again something last year when Jerusalem was declared to be their capital. There's been this phase of development of them gaining access, but then who is them? There's some question about who those people are. I'm not going to get into that, but the question is, who are you? Who am I? Do we have access to that land? Do we have access to that city? Not right now. But what did Yahweh say? He's going to bring his people back. So there's a hope of him actually manifesting as he promised. That has nothing to do with squatters on the land at this moment, or whether the squatters were Crusaders, or Saracens, or Huns, or Persians, or Greeks, or Romans, or Canaanites, or Jebusites, or whoever has been historically sitting on that land. Doesn't matter. When it's time, when the sequence of time is full, the staging of time. So each one of these letters are like this staging of dominoes. Standing, and when Yahweh says, it's time, boom, 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 for things to happen, then things are going to happen. And that's a picture of the letter Kuf. All these concepts I'm talking about are Kuf concepts. So the word Kuf means monkey. Why would it be a monkey? How is the back of a head a monkey? Well, what does a monkey do? A monkey's got this real long tail that he reaches out and holds on to stuff, and he's got long arms in the other end that does the same thing. So the Kuf concept is this long reach into the future, or like up in the Attic, a long reach into the past. To take hold of those things which are true, those things which are authentic and useful, the best of the past. We were told that these words and letters meant nothing, were of no regard, were nailed to the cross, were useless. I have found such things in trying to translate these words that is absolutely astounding, mind-blowing. One of the things you can do for doing a study, talking to Brian Davenport the other day, makes these really interesting guitars. Hot Sauce Kitchen Guitar Studio in Ohio. The point is, if you look in the Red Dictionary and start just looking under Kuf words, Kufav, Kufav Hey, Kuf Hey Hey, Kuf Aleph, Kuf Tav, Kuf Yod Hey, and then start going through Kuf Bet Samik, Kuf Bet Ayin, Kuf Bet Resh, Kuf Bet Lamed. Every single word, you come up with amazing things. You know, as I was looking through this, the word cute is Kuf Tet. It's where we get the sound of the Q and the T. And the vowel, the U, is supplied. So it's cute. And the word, I believe it's here, Kuf Tet. Oh, I don't have it written down. Anyway, a cutie is one who has to do with one who hides covered. And then there was this, here it is, Kuf Tet Gimel Vav Resh, Kutagar, or Kutagor. Well, a gur, if you read that in the dictionary, it's a cub or a whelp, or it's like an attack dog. It's where we get the word Igor. And it, you know, the old scary movies, the mad scientist always had some sidekick, hunchback, or somebody that looked scary, and his name was Igor. The word Igor in Hebrew means cub or whelp, like the sidekick who sent the lackey sent out to cause trouble. And the word cute gore means to speak against somebody in front of an assembly. And Trump just had on his... he was talking to the journalist, and the journalist made some comment trying to embarrass him, and President Trump turned it around and embarrassed the journalist in the front of the assembly as if he was somebody else's whelp, somebody else's cub. And if you know Hebrew, it's like, did President Trump call that guy a cutie, or don't be a little cutie?
Cutie pie.
Cutie pie? Did he say that on purpose because he knows Hebrew? There's a lot of Hebrew words. Kufav Nun Tet, quantum, quantify, to sum up. Kufav Vav Nun, convene, convention. Kufav Mem, that's the word kumi, arise, stand, stature, where we get the word for comedy and communism, coming from Greek even, borrowing off of Hebrew. Long hair. A comet is called a comet because it's this long-haired star. Kuf Mem is also has to do with restoration. Kuf Mem Aleph is ancient, or to be in front, which is like a pioneer. So to go back and get the ancient things and bring them forward to put them to use. You could just sit here and read through these various words. Kuf Samik Mem is where you get the word Kism or Kismet, which actually is a word that means wizard, cosmetic, cosmos, fascinated, charmed, magic, gloved, helmet, Casbah. You know, I remember there's a guy that played music back in the 60s on the radio, and then there was on TV. And he always called himself Casey Kasem. Now, why would a guy playing music to indoctrinate the masses be called Casey Kasem? Is that his real name? Or was that an enchanting wizard that used pop music to lull the masses into some sort of diaprics and praxis? Would that be? Dean Gottsched says something about that. Other matters. To wake up, Kuf Zadi. Realize that somebody has put thorns in your past. Kuf Zadi, a sickening dread. If you listen to what QAnon is saying these days, there's reason to have a sickening dread, but there's also reason for having this concept that somebody's going to get in big trouble. The letter Kuf is shaped like a sickle for harvest. The word kutz has to do with a summer harvest.
Ooh.
Harvesting of fruit. You can sit there and look through Kuf words and you'll find all kinds of interesting, even the word quarantine starts with the letter Q in English, it starts with the letter Kuf in Hebrew. So it's a time in the future, later on, after this, literally after this it's also a picture of something vertical. Well, that's like the picture of the pillar of fire. This vertical torch. And it's a billowing round like a cloud. Well, that's like a pillar of cloud. So I see a picture of a question mark and an exclamation point. There's things to wonder about. That's the question mark. Hey, here it is. Look at this. Read these words. There's the pillar of fire, the exclamation. Question mark, an exclamation point. What is going on? We are right now, as a matter of fact, this evening, some people via Q were saying that there was going to be a blackout across the country, the world,
Internet.
across the internet for 3 days, a week, 3 weeks, whatever it might be. I don't know if it's happened. We'll see if we get this video up. But the thing is, if you compare this to the 10 plagues in Egypt, Yahweh had it dark everywhere else, but not in the land of Goshen. Not for his people. There's promises, if you're his people, that we have nothing to fear about any of this other funny business, this monkey business going around, like the letter Kuf, the monkey business. That's other people thinking that they're running stuff, but according to what Yahuwah said, he's got plans that they can't affect. He can affect theirs, and he's going to put them to shame. The traps, the snares that they build to catch other people in, he's going to push them into those snares and traps. The idea of the letter Kuf is this great Tikva, this great hope, the hope of the resurrection, the hope that everything Yahweh said is true, but then it's qualified. It's qualified in that, do you know where it is? 2 Chronicles 20 something? Maybe you could look it up there real quick. Solomon was dedicating the temple. It was the greatest of all the great events that the world has ever seen, that Israel has ever known. And Solomon gives a great speech. It's worth a read. A lot of people have never read the Old Testament. And then Yahweh himself responds with a great line, paragraph that people love to quote. Do you have that there? It's in 2 Chronicles.
Is this what you're looking for?
Where does it say where Yahweh is speaking back to him? Is that 2 Chronicles 3?
2 Chronicles 3, Solomon builds the temple.
I thought it was 2 Chronicles 20 approximately.
Oh, 20, I'm
that,
sorry.
Let's see. Maybe it isn't 20, maybe it's... So he says, if my people who are called by my name. Well, here, I'll go off of memory until she can find it.
Sorry.
I didn't have it ready. He says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, turn from their sins, seek my face. Wait a minute. Just like every letter is a filter of qualification, every one of these statements that Yahuwah gives to his people is a filter of qualification.
2 Chronicles 7:14.
2 Chronicles 7. Do you want to read it?
If my people. That
Yeah,
verse.
go ahead and read that loud enough for the camera to hear you.
If my people which are called by my name
There's one. Hang on. Let me just stop you as you read. 7:14. If my people. Okay, so the question is this. Who are his people? Now, if you read all through various scriptures, which I've made mention of a number of times, Yahweh has these great dreams like Martin Luther King. I have a dream. Yahweh has expressed it, that he would be our Elohim, we would be his people, and there's a very particular relationship as per the terms of the covenant written in the Old Testament. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, David, Moshe. So somebody could say, hey, we have a new covenant. Well, then this isn't talking about that people. Now, if there's a new covenant with different terms and conditions, that's a different matter. We're not discussing that matter or those terms or who is qualified as a believer and who isn't. I'm not addressing that at all. We okay for time?
Yeah.
Okay, so but what I'm saying is I'm trying to take at face value exactly what these words say and say, let's go through this list of qualifications. If you're not his people, then pay no attention to the rest of this. It's not yours. If you are not called by his name, what's his name? Jehovah, not necessarily. Yahweh, Yahuwah, Yahweh. It's not about necessarily how you pronounce his name. It's what does his name mean? And the word Shem, or name, means name, fame, renown, regard, reputation. And it's the things that the Moedim testify to. He said that us not working on the Sabbath day would be the sign that he is our Elohim and we is his people. Now, how we keep the Sabbath day, which day is the Sabbath day? Is it go by the sliver of the moon? Is people that look at the moon to determine the sliver worshiping the moon? I don't think so. I've heard people be accused of that. Is it going by the Roman calendar? Is it... Regarding the seventh day is one thing. Figuring out which is the seventh day is another thing. And we've inherited so many lies, it's totally convoluted, like a barrel of monkeys trying to figure out what's what. That's why I don't argue about the calendar, just so you know. If there's the qualifier. My people, there's one. Called by my name. What is his name? That's two. What's the next one?
Shall humble themselves.
Shall humble themselves. Now the word humble, there's a couple of them, but I'd have to look this up. But the typical word used for humble is the word used on Yom Kippur, which is Ayin Nun Hey, which literally means, there's one word, might be Pei Ayin Nun, but it means folded wings, contrite and wrinkled. Just kind of, he said he'd stiffen Pharaoh's heart, and Pharaoh's, you know, this stiff neck, and typically the people of Israel had a stiff neck, arrogant and haughty, and that one word for humble means wrinkled and shrunk down and folded wings, kind of penitent.
Like Indiana Jones.
Okay, whatever you say. A penitent man down on his knees. That's one word for humble. The other word for humble is the word they translate fast, which is what we're doing here. Occupied. Make it your business. Answer, reply, respond to him. Concern yourself. And make it your business in life to say, I got to do this right. And that has nothing to do with being shrunken, wrinkled. It has to do with like, hey, let's just be attentive. It's also the word to sing. So you could on Yom Kippur, we did a video about this, which some people appreciate and some people just don't like it. The point is, You can sing on Yom Kippur in response to the great things that Yahweh has promised, that we are his people and he is our Elohim. And that's doing the Ayin Nun Hey, which is otherwise translated humble and poverty and oppressed and afflicted. Okay, so if my people will humble themselves, if you don't make it your burden and reply and make it your concern of really addressing these matters daily, all the time on your consciousness, pray without ceasing and always attending to him, you're not humbling yourself. Now, you can think you're humbling yourself in some way, but look at the meaning of the word and then wrap your mind around it. So the interesting thing about doing this Hebrew study is that when you find even one word, like humble yourself, if you don't humble yourself, we'll see what happens if you don't humble yourself. But if you don't humble yourself, you have no access, even if you are his people and are called by his name. So learning what it means to humble yourself according to the Hebrew word means getting the dictionary, looking up online and wrapping your mind about it and attending it to you to hope that you can become one of those people thus qualified. And the next verb, action.
And pray.
And pray. You don't pray, you don't seek him, beseech him, you don't engage him in conversation. You have no access to what he's about to tell us. This is the qualified on the other side of this big if. So, if my people, if, that's a question, my people, called by my name, will humble themselves and pray.
And seek my face.
Seek his face. How do you do that? Read more Bible verses. Is that his face? Learn the alphabet. Is that seeking his face? Pray more. Sing more. Is that seeking his face? Having a heart. Is that seeking his face? There's a number of different words which means to seek. And I could go through that list. You could go through the list, get a interlinear, get Strong's Concordance, get the Red Dictionary, get Brown Driver Briggs or Englishman's Concordance, and you can look up the word for seek and find out whether it's put in there and wherever it is put into a verse somewhere in the Tanakh, and then you can go look at those verses and it's like, oh, come on, just go to church and they'll tell you. It's a lot of work. What does it mean to seek? Tav Resh, tar is an explorer. Boker is an explorer. Pioneer, the word kadem is Eastern, but it's also forward. It's also to go out as a pioneer, as a forecourt player in tennis or basketball. The guy that runs down the court first and is the first one out there to welcome others. That's what we're trying to do by making these videos. Pioneering. There's all these different words that are wrapped around the word for seek. You know, I keep bringing out these pair of binoculars. Ayin Dalet, Ayin Tav. See the both together, binocular. Focus on what he said. Until the time. See the door. See the Tav, the sign, the mark. How do you do that? Every letter is a Tav, a sign, a mark. In every letter, Yeshua said, I'm the door. Every letter speaks of Yeshua. If you can see Yeshua being Mashiach in every letter, and if you know what the letters mean, and you can see by their shapes and by their meanings and where they're placed in the alphabetic letter sequence, it opens up. The whole language opens up. The verses, the text opens up, and you can see Yahweh like I have never heard anybody describe ever before, anywhere in my life.
What's his face?
What's his face? The word panim is face. So when you say there's a table of showbread, and that word is panim lechem. Lechem is bread, but panim, well, the word pan means bread. Pan means to take a camera and pan across. It's like the Pan American Games or the whole spread. So something about spreading out is
pandemic.
pan. A pandemic, literally, what's going on right now is across the world. So something, the full scope is pan, but it's also translated face. But the letter pei is a mouth. Add the picture. A mouth is something that opens, and what jumps out of your mouth? Words. Well, if you look at here's another way to do the study. You look at the letters mem nun that we talked about that. A womb, and that which grows in the womb and then jumps out. Okay, so mem nun. Mem is 40, nun is 50. So 50th day is counting is nun. So you count for, there's actually 40 weeks, right, of pregnancy for humans.
42, 40,
40 something.
40 something.
Got to try that again. It makes it stick in your mind. Point is, mem is a womb, which is counting, which is 40, which is gestation, and nun is what jumps out. Okay, so if you go back to a mouth and correlate it to a mem, of that mouth has something that you put in and something comes out, words come out. So the nun is what jumps out of your mouth is words that speak according to what's in your heart, which is mem. So there I can look at the word pan and say, as the mouth opens and speaks, so is what was nurtured in the heart. That correlates to another Bible verse, but I'm now comparing it to these words mem nun and pe nun. So if pe nun is translated face, but his face is actually a picture in the Hebrew letters of what jumps out of his mouth. And then the word pane, pe nun yod, well, ends in the yod suffix means my. It means my, but it's a picture of a hand that works. So words that jump out of your mouth that are your own, that make something happen, that work, that's pane. So I choose to believe. I can make up any story I want and believe it on these letters. Now, if I'm wrong, I'm the one who's misleading myself, hopefully not others. But I'm just playing with words. I'm playing with the toys in the attic. I could sit here and take every one of these letters. Oh, this is an aleph, and that's a bet, and that's a gimel, and that's a dalet, and that's a hey, and that's a vav, and that's a... I can appropriate a letter value to any letter I want. And I can just play, like playing dollies in your dollhouse with the pictures of the cats. You can have them drink tea. You can have them hold the finger, or not. You can have them drink hot cocoa, but there's nothing in it. Maybe you... What I'm saying is you can do whatever you want. But to correlate these letters to the 7 days of creation, Yahweh's signature, which are the same as the correlation to the Moedim, Yahweh's witness and testimony and best adornment, and correlate them to the Mishkan, where he said was the Tabanit, which is, you might say, the word translated pattern, or my son hidden within the pattern. That was Yahweh's design. And then Yeshua's walk during his the time on his earth, as accounted for in the Gospels, that's his stuff. I'm correlating the meaning of the letters very specifically to his stuff, his personal stuff. I'm not even hardly looking at aleph is an ox, bet is a house, gimel is a camel, dalet is a door, hey is a window, vav is a nail. The words mean those things, but those are placeholders of reference so that we don't forget, so we don't lose track. But those are just on the surface. Those are just indicators on the surface, and the depth has to be correlated to these other things. What's next?
And turn from their wicked ways.
Turn from their wicked ways. What is a wicked way? According to Psalms, righteousness is keeping the Torah, doing what he said. So unrighteousness, on the one hand, is just whatever's not doing what he said. So if he tells us to rest on the Sabbath day and we do not, maybe we don't know which day is the Sabbath day. I grew up believing Sunday is the Sabbath day. Then I found out it wasn't. Oops. Am I a dirty, rotten sinner? Maybe so. Well, oops. I was lied to, misled, deceived. Or maybe my teachers didn't even know. Oops. Hey, there's forgiveness. Thank you very much, Yahweh our Elohim. The point is, as soon as I found out, I made the correction. So it wasn't an intentional wickedness. There's another word for wickedness, which is people who crave doing evil, harming other people. And there's a few different words for that.
Twisting is a word too, right? Like a wick.
Twisted, sick, intending harm, doing stuff with a stiff neck in front of Yahweh's face to just do the opposite of what he said. There's numerous different things. We'd have to look at particularly that word, but it almost doesn't matter. What I'm saying is that you know what wickedness is. I didn't know that going to church on Sunday was not what he said, but was it wicked? I thought that's what the righteous people did. That's what I thought. We're in a big mess. Things are getting straightened out. So we'll just take it a step at a time.
Then I will hear from heaven.
Then, so this is if, then I will hear from heaven. Whoa, hey, wait a minute. That almost sounds like what he's saying. If any one of those things on the checklist is not met, he cannot hear from heaven and will not hear from heaven. So here's the other side of this. If the word Jacob means that which follows, kuf, and if he said, if these qualifications are met, then I will hear from heaven, and these qualifications are not met, he's not going to hear from heaven. He can't hear our prayers. Even though we were told he hears all of our prayers. He just gave a list of qualifications. If we don't meet those qualifications, he's not going to hear our prayers. What else?
And will forgive their sins.
And forgive our sins. If he doesn't hear, he's not going to forgive our sins. We have to do those things first.
And he won't heal our land.
And heal the land. You want him to heal the land from this coronavirus? You want him to heal the land from the people that are sucking adrenochrome out of aborted babies? You want to know about that? Look it up. Adrenochrome. You want to know why the coronavirus is happening? Q. Adrenochrome. Look it up. Coof. Back of the head where they suck it out of. You know what they're doing to all these kids that are missing? You want to know what the leaders of our country and our celebrities have been doing? What we've been trying to work? What we've been trying to be good people? You know what our leaders and teachers have been doing? Lying to us. Mm-hmm. And you want to know how to find favor in Yahweh's world, his reality? Now, whatever they've got planned, whatever they think they're doing, whether they planned it or not, doesn't matter. What matters is Yahweh has a plan. Mm-hmm. And the plan is for his people to hear his words, repent, turn from your wicked ways, do what he said, cry out to him. He will hear, and this is not the end of the world. There's a hope, there's a promise, there's a restoration of being in his favor, reconciled and being with him on his land. The promise that he told our forefathers has not yet happened. The world can't end until it does. And that's what he said. That's the kuf. That's what I'm looking at. And I don't care a rat's back end about what any of these guys are saying.
That's right. That's right.
And flying rats, what they put in the soup, is what they said spread this thing. So if you go back and do what he said and quit eating that stuff.
Just do what he said to do.
Just do what he said. You might be spared from even a worse fate coming to the world. Well, I think we're about out of time.
Thank you, Eric.
I do.
All right. I'm going to cue it off.